fam, best friends, and ghoulish knights, and welcome to the 18th episode of Murders with Mertens. I am your host, Joe, and this is a podcast about horror. Monster movies, cosmic horror, body horror, the horror-adjacent thrillers, the psychologically terrifying, scary films in general. Each episode, I sit down with a guest and discuss one of their favorite scary films so we can gush about everything that makes it just so damned cool. Viewers, thank you for the support. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you are so inclined. It all helps to get the word out and bring some much needed love to this fledgling podcast. I have a minor goal of reaching 100 subs so I can get that custom URL for the channel. Just a little bit over halfway there. So help, please, if you care or whatever. It's cool. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming back for his second appearance, Mr. Phillip J Woodward. Bill,
Hello,
how the hell
everybody.
are you?
I'm doing very well. Just finished mowing my lawn. We established that it's not very hot outside, but it was still a lot of work. So
It might be hot for you, and that's okay.
Oh.
I get that. It's like when there's a snowstorm that sprinkles just a little bit of snow and ice around Atlanta, and everybody has gridlock for
man.
several days. Yeah, I understand. If you're not used to it, it sucks.
That's like rain in LA,
Mm-hmm.
Up here we're used to it. You go down to LA and rain's like, oh, better take a sick day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you imagine rain hindering your day that much?
Oh my God. Not here in Southeast Michigan, that's for sure. We have such wild swings of weather. We're just used to misery, I guess.
I technically live in a classification of a rainforest, even though in the last few years it's been a little drier. Obviously, there's been a lot of fires around us.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, we've never been hit. But yeah, it's literally because we live in like what's classified as a redwood rainforest, which is kind of cool. If you don't know the area that I live in, it's where like Jurassic Park was filmed. It's where Star Wars was filmed. It was where literally Salem's Lot and part of oh my God, what's the movie? The oh man, I'm really blanking right now, and this is horrible for me. It's the one with the monkeys, the outbreak. Wait, is it Outbreak?
Planet of the Apes. The
No, 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 not that one. Although that was filmed close to here too. Um, no, it's the older one with uh, is it Hoffman? Um, I literally think it might
Outbreak?
be Outbreak. Yeah, I said Outbreak earlier, and in it, and I'm like, is that the movie? But yes, I don't know why I couldn't think of that. But yes, Outbreak. Was part of that was filmed here. Part of Halloween 3 was filmed here, which you did an
Nice.
episode on not too long ago. I thought about sending you pictures of some of the locations from that film.
Yeah,
Um,
shockingly about 6 months ago, if you can believe that.
God, has it been that long already? Oh my God.
Yeah, I can't believe it, but we've been rolling on. It's been fun. I've
But
had the
anyway.
good fortune of knowing a lot of cool folks, and yeah. But yeah, you live in a very cool area. So yeah, it must be near Muir Woods and all that. Nice, very nice.
Yeah, it's pretty fun, pretty cool. I always like to throw that out there on movie podcasts because people might want to kill me after this episode, and I make it easy to find me. So
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll do our best not to dox you too much here. Um, I think we should jump into it here. Tonight's topic is 2005's The Descent, written and directed by Neil Marshall. 2005 feels kind of far away now, but I swear to
oh my
God, it feels
God,
like yesterday.
100%, 100%. You know what though is that era of movies for me? Like that is my childhood. Like that's right around that 2001 to 2007 was like my high school college days. So very much like right in my key childhood horror, the millennial era of horror.
Yeah, as a super young Gen Xer, that's like the aughts are where I got into horror to a larger degree. There was the 80s and the 90s, but it was that period where we got all the like After Dark Horror Fest and like 8 films to die for and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And yeah, having the blockbuster version of the Netflix mailers where they would send you the
Oh
DVDs.
my God.
Um, yep.
Yeah, they just had their what was it? Their 20th anniversary or something like that. Like Netflix was celebrating, and I'm like, wait,
I
have they
know,
been
man.
around that long?
I know. And well, that kind of thing definitely helped to fuel the growing addiction. And that's definitely how I got around to seeing this film. I'm sure that I saw, like a trailer or something online because, I mean, that's what you did in undergrad and, in your 20s. You just basically sit and watch trailers instead of actually watching something, right? What's your history with the film?
So I saw it in theaters,
Nice.
and it was actually my first film that I saw from Neil, and it's what eventually led me to see Dog Soldiers, and unfortunately some subsequent movies that were not as good.
We don't have to
Not
talk about those. That's okay. That's okay. But yeah,
but
probably stuff like Doomsday and
yes, Doomsday, which I mean
yeah.
is still fun, but it's definitely a far cry away from this film, which I think after rewatching it again, man, it might be one of the pinnacle 2000s horror films.
Hmm.
Everything in that movie for the most part still holds up really well. There's
Yeah.
some practical effects I think that would have been done better today, or with a better technical,
Yeah. Maybe with a little more
artist.
money.
Yeah. Um and stuff like that, but for the most part it's really hard to pick this film apart,
Yeah. Oh
in a
God, yeah.
negative way, I mean.
Yeah, this film absolutely rips. It,
One of
it
the
gets
best
going.
cold opens, I think,
Oh yeah.
in cinema history, with uh the rapids. You the opening credits and then the rapids, and everyone's just having a good time, and you're like, okay, this is really interesting. Like, how is this gonna roll into what we're going
And
into?
bang. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
not even something that you would expect.
Yeah.
Um,
Yet
was it the
although
Expendables? Oh, go ahead.
no, I was going to say Final Destination 2, but we're going to talk about that in just a moment. I think we should just jump in here.
Yeah.
We get the red Lionsgate logo, which is
Yep.
always there to tell us we're in for a bloody good time, right? It's at least in this era, all the fun horror films that they put out would always get the treatment there. And like you said, we get the whitewater rafting, which looks fun but terrifying. Um, that helmet's wearing you if you hit a rock. Um,
Right.
but yeah, you get these three ladies out having a good time, and they see a guy and a little girl on a rock who are waving to him, calling to them, all that stuff. They're getting to the end of their journey. Clearly, I love how the water gets super calm super quickly.
Yeah.
Um, it's I don't know how that works out, but it's
Editing. That's how.
yes, yeah, that's exactly it. We'll suspend just a little bit of disbelief there. So they come ashore and they knock the one lady in. We've got what is it, Sarah Beth and Juno. And Juno kind of fucking around a little bit, gets knocked in the water, and we get Sarah's husband Paul and their young girl. I think it's Jessica. But yeah,
I don't remember what the little girl's name is.
yeah, but Paul helps pull Juno out of the water there, and they have this clear moment. And you see Beth looking at them, understanding that there's something there. And Paul just very abruptly says to his wife, "Yeah, hey, it's fucking cold. Let's get out of here." Um, and they take off. He's very standoffish. It's clear there's something not working there, and
It,
something that apparently is.
it's very interesting because when you first get introduced to him, he looks super happy.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like he is, you know, just ready and raring to go for the ladies doing their rafting. And it doesn't occur to me until, like this time. I'm sure previous watch, but this time watching it, I really noticed how happy he was, and it hit me when he was, like you said, just suddenly all stern. Oh crap, he wasn't happy for her, and
Nope.
he was happy for someone else on that raft.
Hmm.
And yeah, very very apparent in the beginning of the film, which, when you first watch it, you're like, wait, what's going on? What's this discontent here?
Yeah, yeah. So then in the car, heading down the road there, um, mom, Sarah, she's talking to her daughter about what she wants to do for her birthday party and all that. And Paul, again, super standoffish. And they start to, talk just a little bit, and he's distracted and drifts into the oncoming lane and hits this vehicle carrying a bunch of copper pipe that slams right through the windshield and through a couple of bodies. And this is why I brought up Final Destination 2, because I had to double
Yes.
check which came first, and unfortunately it was Final Destination 2.
Yeah, they
Because
pumped those movies out because it was what, 2001 for Final Destination, and then like
yeah, and then
2003
yep,
for Final Destination 2.
yeah, they were just cranking those puppies out. And that's, everybody has the fear of driving behind a logging truck because of that movie, because I
Right.
mean, yeah, it's an iconic scene and everything. And yeah, I
The
just
the big difference between something like Final Destination though and this movie is the fact that there is no precursor. You've seen Final Destination. You know something is going to go wrong. You just don't know what it is necessarily. And they telegraph it, in Final Destination. In this, there's no real telegraphing until the moment happens. I
oh
was
yeah,
bringing up the Expendables earlier because, they bring on Liam Hemsworth, right? Or whatever. I think it's the Expendables where he's like the young recruit in that movie, and then he ends up dying very early. It may not be the
right.
Expendables though,
I think it
but
may be.
yeah. So
It's
like
been a
they're on
while
they're on
since
a
I've seen those.
mission. Yeah, they're on a mission, and in this movie, it's Liam Hemsworth, and they like he's like he's talking about his like girlfriend back home or whatever, and you're like, oh
Oh
man, this dude's gonna die.
yeah, that sounds like a kiss of death. That's like a cop in a bar talking about what he's going to do after he retires. Um,
Right. Yeah. And then of course the next call they go on, he ends up dying. Right.
yeah,
100%. And there's
yeah.
none of that here. There's none of that
Yeah.
for the opening
I
of
mean,
this movie.
you
Like,
see the swerve of the car into the oncoming lane and the other car not stopping or moving it, but you almost think to yourself, he's going to look over and then,
yep.
make a
Yeah. Oh,
course correction.
classic, right? Classic.
Hmm.
Like, oh God, oh, swerve. And then we hear the rush of traffic, and then, she's like, what the Paul?
Hmm.
And then, whatever the next part of the movie is gonna happen. No. Mm-mm.
Nope. Nope. They did.
Bloody
Um,
pole. Bloody
yep.
pole.
Yep.
Beautiful effect too, because
Oh, yeah.
rather than show exactly what happens to poor Paul, um it just shows the pole coming through the back seat with the gore, and I think that's so great. um and then they don't show the little girl at all, which I
Yeah.
thought was really really cool too, because why show that? And it
Yeah.
sets
Oh,
up the
yeah.
next sequence, which is also really cool.
Yeah, yeah. The dream that she has of her daughter with her birthday cake, blowing out the candles, and then it's kind of intercut with her waking up finally in the hospital. She has her little freak out moment where she pulls everything off of her and she heads out into the hallway, and there is just nobody around.
Right.
And then it becomes very clear, oh, it's still a dream, which is one of my
Yep.
favorite horror tropes, the dream within a dream type thing.
What I liked
Um,
about this one though was the fact that she was like actually up and about, like she was practically
yeah,
sleepwalking,
yeah,
which is kind
because
of a different take.
yeah, the lights start, shutting down in again another fun horror trope that you see from
Yeah.
time to time. And the darkness is essentially chasing her, and as she's running away, it overtakes her. But that's when she, very much awake, slams into Beth, coming to get her in the hospital, and they have their breakdown moment, and Juno's behind them crying her eyes out as well.
For a
I
completely
find it,
different reason.
yeah, yeah, I think so. Um, and I find it very interesting that here they are in the middle of a very crowded hallway, and nobody's like, you know, stopping, looking at them, talking. People are just completely ignoring them. It's weird, but also, good, effective, open because we moved to the title card from here.
I have
Which is
I, I have a quick question. Do you know if there's
yeah,
any significance behind the birthday? Like why they chose the blowing out of the candles? Do you think it's just because it's an emotional moment
I
for her?
that I think you're right with that.
I've
That
always wondered if there was a bigger reason or if there was something that was cut from the movie that, like that there was supposed to be something about her birthday, but
I think it's more of a, just an easy way to tug at heartstrings,
yeah.
um, and to, just a cool visual too, because it's
Oh,
complete
absolutely.
darkness with only the candlelight.
Yep.
Um, and I like the title card in that you don't see the full title. It's just like the light playing across it.
Across it. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And we cut to Appalachia 1 year later. Um,
Beautiful cinematography here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this
Um
there's some really cool shots in this film when they're not, when they're exterior shots.
yeah. I
It's
think what's really interesting is, today you would do something like that with a drone, right?
yeah.
Um like in older movies, especially city shots, you would get stuff like that from stock footage or a
Hmm.
very expensive flight.
Yeah.
Um, I imagine that this movie probably did stock flyover footage, but I don't know. It's very cinematic, whoever shot it. I'd
Hmm.
love to know if it was stock footage or if they spent money to actually shoot that.
I don't know. It's, I suppose with color correction and everything, you can achieve the consistency, but it all looks like really consistent with
Really
everything
good.
else
Yeah,
that's on the
100%.
ground, right?
Yeah.
It's got a very defined look. And we get Beth and Sarah driving along. They're it. You finally get a sense of where they are, at least what state they are, because this is a large mountain range here in, the US. But they're in North Carolina. You finally get that from the license plates. But they, don't really give you a good sense of where exactly. And that's okay. That doesn't really matter in this film. Um,
I think it is
but
kind of cool though because you have people from, many different places coming together for this movie.
mhm. Yep, absolutely. And they're kind of reuniting and also in some ways celebrating Sarah's return
Right.
from, the dark place that she's been. And they're getting together for a weekend of spelunking. Yeah, because that's what they do. They're all thrill seekers. Um, Sarah and Beth make their way to the cabin. Juno meets them, and we're introduced to the rest of the crew. We've got Sam, Rebecca, and Holly. She's the new girl, sort of a protege of Juno's.
Fucking Holly.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna talk about Holly eventually. That's for sure. Because wow, she's obnoxious. Um, they all get caught up over drinks and
Too many.
yeah, way too many because some of them are having a hard time the next day for sure. But Holly and Sam go outside for a smoke. Juno interrupts there. She's promising grand adventure with this caving expedition. And then back inside again, more drinks. There are many beer bottles in this cabin. um yeah. Sarah winces a little bit at an awkward comment from Holly about children. Um,
Yeah,
I,
that I mean that shuts the I find that such a great way of them shutting the conversation down, right? Like, oh, I want
mhm,
lots of babies. And then everybody just goes quiet. And then even to the point where someone tries to start talking again and they're like, nah, that mood is dead, y'all.
yeah. Yep, she's absolutely a bit of a buzzkill. She thinks she's super cool. Nah, not so much. Um, Sarah wakes up early in the morning and she gets up out of bed. You see that bottle of some kind of a prescription on her nightstand. Um, she's probably coping with a lot still. She
Yep.
gets up to look outside, and we get that fun pipe bursting through the window and into her head, because of course it's a dream.
Yep.
Um, but
Which, I mean,
very,
to be fair, I imagine that if you were put through that experience and, it was traumatic for a lot of different reasons, to the
oh
point
yeah.
where she might even have wished that she passed in the same instance.
Hmm.
And then it becomes, is that her like wishing that she passed in that moment with her family, or is that her terrified that it could have been her? Or is it a little bit of both?
Yeah. Uh, Regardless, it's some horrible PTSD she's dealing with.
Yes,
It's
100%.
oh yeah, it's not great. So she wakes up with a start then, because this time she's really waking up. Um, yeah, yeah. Again, love that trope.
Not
So much
not
fun.
the not the end of that trope either.
No, no, we're gonna keep cutting back to that, aren't we? We cut to Juno going for a morning run because, of course, before doing this caving expedition, she's still gonna go running,
Yep.
especially after drinking all night. Yeah, she's a machine.
Yeah, they
Um,
they're definitely trying to show how confident and how much of a badass she is for sure.
mhm, absolutely. And she goes to wake everybody up. Everybody feels like shit. She gives them, a few minutes. She bursts into the room with Holly and a few of the others. Does this bullshit move where she's able to lift her foot above her head, and Holly tries to mimic this and falls on her ass because, yeah, you're not Juno. You're trying to be Juno so hard, but you're not Juno. Um, but it's a good moment of levity. This film needs it for sure. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how front loaded this movie is with fun and some of
mhm.
the more lighthearted moments for sure. It
Yeah.
definitely pays off when the movie gets going.
Oh yeah. And then it's group photo time, and I
Woo!
love a good photo in a film that makes a callback at the end. But we're not there yet. These people are driving way too fast, and
And they still get there late.
yeah, yeah, they're still running late. Yeah, yeah. Um,
But there's a
but
reason for that.
yes, yes, because yeah, well, we'll get there. Uh, uh, they go off road and they finally get to their destination, so to speak. Um, and as they're driving, they make a comment about, you sure we're going the right way? And Juno says, "Relax, I've never been lost in my life." Um,
Because of
yeah,
course she hasn't.
yes, of course, because she's just that confident in her abilities, and it's wonderful foreshadowing for sure. Um, and they make it to where they're going. They get out, and they've got a bit of a hike to get to this cave. And as they're going, somebody decides to recite the laundry list of bad shit you can experience while caving, and it sounds just delightful.
I love it. Yeah, it's like something. It made it sound like something I want to do.
Yeah,
After hearing
absolutely.
that, 100%, got to do it.
Yep, yep. Sign me up. Yes. Um, they find along the way rotting corpse of a deer, and somebody makes the comment about how it could have been a bear, and all I'm thinking of at this point is the quarry, because the mention of bears in that game over and over is such a fun little thing. And then they make it to the mouth of this cave, and they descend. Um, which is pretty cool. You get this again, beautifully shot film. It's the light filtering down into the hole and everything. I know a lot of this was filmed at Pinewood Studios because of the danger of actually filming inside of a cave.
Yeah, they had a
I'm
really cool set that they could move around and do some really cool stuff in from what I watched in like the behind the scenes stuff and everything.
nice, nice. Well, they make it all look very real. That's for sure. Um, once they get down, and of course Holly has to be the asshole, the last one
Oh
down.
man.
She has to fly down as fast as gravity will take her, and she nearly clobbers somebody. Um, Somebody breaks out a small digital camcorder and starts filming a little
Isn't it
bit.
Holly?
Maybe, yeah, you're right. It is Holly because she's the one that's constantly documenting all sorts of shit.
And
Um,
she's like, "Wow, this cave is way cooler than I thought it was gonna be."
yeah, she was making comments. I can't remember the name of the cave they were supposed to be going to.
Right,
But
yeah.
yeah,
But it
she
was
she
supposed to be for preface, it was supposed to be like a level 2, whatever that means, which I guess is easy on the spelunking scale.
mhm.
And not so easy apparently because we're going to find out very soon.
Yes, yeah, you had that shot when they left the trucks of Juno leaving the guidebook in the glove box. Um, because clearly it wouldn't have helped them anyways, because they're someplace different. And Sarah is looking around and she sees some wonderful bloody claw marks in the stone. Um, yeah, that's not unsettling at all. That's not something that you would call out to the rest of your party. Hey, look at this. No, no, you're just gonna look at it and kind of shrug and keep it moving. Um, and then we get the required burst of bats flying out of the cave that startles everyone, um because it's a cave, so you got to have bats flying out startling folks. It works though. It's a nice jump
it
scare.
I think if as a viewer, if you hadn't figured it out already, you know, this is not the cave that they were supposed to go into because generally speaking, unless the cave is meant to be like a bat sighting cave, uh, they would have known that this was like a bat nesting area. From what I understand, as far as public caves are concerned, generally
Hmm.
speaking, bats aren't going to stay there because there's too many people coming in and out. So,
Interesting. So once more a little sign of this is not the right place. And of course Holly, she has to do the little count reference from Sesame Street, and it's not you do a bad count, Holly.
it's true.
It's bad. They descend further, Juno leading the way, and they find this large open chamber and spark up a couple of flares, and all stare around in wonder. And yeah, it's cool. It's it's this is what we're here for, right? Um,
What I
Ignoring
love
Juno. Oh, go ahead.
is what I love is after this point, the film gets very quiet for a little while.
Yeah.
It just with they let the score go. They're kind of exploring. There's a few like, wow, whoa, oh my gosh, and like once they're in the cave, like it just kind of gets quiet, and it's an interesting kind of flip from how loud the movie has been, you know, since the beginning. And can we mention also that the cast here is very dynamic? Like there's literally a bunch of different personalities that are really well realized,
Hmm.
and they're all women. They're all different, strong, powerful women doing some really cool things. And
Yeah.
I think especially for the time period 2005, we weren't seeing a lot of that. And I remember, this film in particular hit really really well. And yet I still don't hear people talk about it enough.
Yeah, I think there's a lot from this time period that's largely forgotten. If it wasn't a giant blockbuster or something.
Well, it sucks too because we also had, it was crowded by Saw movies and
Hmm.
the Hostel movies and all these gore porn movies that
Yeah,
were
yeah, the torture
the
porn.
kind
Yeah,
of hallmark of what people think of generally when they think of the 2000s era.
I mean, the poster for this film was like from the producers of Saw and Hostel. It's
Sure, sure.
yeah,
Yeah, all the women like in different positions forming a
yeah, forming
skull.
the skull. Yeah, yeah,
Pretty
that was
cool.
a fun touch. Makes me think of the old Silence of the Lambs posters. Um, but yeah, yeah. As far as like the different women in the bunch, you've got Juno, the super aggressive, like,
The
you know,
stalwart explorer.
yeah, exactly. And Beth, who's very protective of Sarah, probably
Yep.
because she knows also what was going on between Juno and Paul, or at least
Oh
had her
man,
suspicions.
that
Um,
that apology at the end of the movie, not to jump, but it hit me a lot harder this time than I
yeah,
think it did the last time, times I've watched that movie. Just because, like I said, I had kind of paid more attention to Paul in this watch, and Juno this watch, and so it was just one of those things where when that hit, I was like, oh man, she knew the entire time, or like you said, at least had very strong suspicions. But I think with how close they were, she definitely knew. I think it was
yeah.
one of those things where it was like Juno was like, "You cannot tell Sarah," sort of thing. It's like they probably, if life had gone on, you know, Paul would have been like, "Hey, I am in love with somebody else," and then they would have come out that it was Juno, and that would have broke the group apart anyway, and that would have been a very different movie because I feel like this would have been a "Hey, let's get past this. You're my best friend" sort of movie instead of "Oh crap, let's get you back on your feet" sort of movie.
Hmm. Yeah. Also, Sam and Rebecca, who spend a lot of time together in this film, is that a Cheers reference?
I don't know. I don't know. um but
Because
yes, they are literally pretty much together the entire movie.
right, right. It's all of a sudden that hit me. It's like, yeah, there was Sam and Diane, but after Shelley Long left Cheers, then we got what's her face that played Rebecca, and okay, yep, it's got to be.
Yeah, that's funny. I've never thought about it like that, but that's great.
uh, so yeah, one of the things they bring up earlier in this film, as they're heading towards the cave, is the laundry list of rules of caving. You let somebody know where you're going. You don't go off on your own. You stick together. So rule one's clearly been broken by Juno.
Oh,
Rule
100%.
two, we've got we've got Sarah breaking here in that she goes off on her own to poke around in this chamber, and we get a little jump scare from Juno grabbing her and saying, "Hey, come on, it's time to go eat." And they go off and they hydrate and have a snack, and Sarah just kind of shrugs off Juno's ham-fisted attempt at mothering here. Um, saying it's jet lag or whatever, right? She's not ready to really be that friendly with her, I guess.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, so as we know later in the movie, like Sarah was the one who wanted this. She's the one who wanted to go spelunking. She needed something to get out of her own head, restart her
mm,
life, and try and get back on her feet. And she wholeheartedly, I think, was thinking of something easy, something like the cave they had planned on, just to get ease back into it. But of course, that's not Juno can't do that. Juno
nope.
can't do an easy cave. Um my question is, how did she come across this cave? If no one had discovered this cave before, was it just something that she found while hiking one time? That's an interesting one to me.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely something that's unclear and could have potentially been something that was left on the cutting room floor. Who knows? But yeah, yeah, she's just way too intense for Sarah
Yeah,
at this
100%.
point. And Juno apologizes at this point for not sticking around very long after the accident. And
Again, for very different reasons.
yes, yes, because she probably didn't want to be found out as well
Well,
as
more that, like, I mean, the person she loved just died, right?
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, just this is not good. Yeah, Sarah just doesn't want to fucking talk about it, and she
right.
heads off to find another passage. So here's my question about Holly at this point. Does she really have a good understanding about what happened to Sarah? Because right around here, she makes another comment that just makes it seem she's either completely oblivious, and that would be very much in her character, or she's just not been completely filled in on what exactly happened to Sarah.
Yeah. So Holly is an interesting character. I honestly think that she wasn't informed at all. Like I assume she knew that there was an accident, but with Juno's relationship to Sarah and Paul and everything, I don't think that she really talked about what happened in that accident. I think
Sure
it's more
feels
one of
like it.
those things, yeah, where where Juno was like, "Yeah, Sarah got into an accident, so this is kind of her first time back out. So if we could, be nice to her, that'd be great." And that's it. Nothing about that her husband died in the accident. Nothing about that her child died in the accident. I think she was just completely oblivious to that part of it.
Yeah, and Juno also strikes me as somebody who's just that fucking careless.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, she obviously decided to bring, her along on a trip that should have just been for the core group of them,
Yeah, it
in
should have
my
been five
opinion.
people instead of six, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so let's see here. At this point, Sarah finds a passage, but it's very small, and Holly goes first. And one by one, they make their way through, but of course, Sarah gets stuck and starts getting anxious. Beth goes back for her and, trying to get her to calm down because she's having a freaking panic attack being pinned in this tight tunnel. Um, Beth talks to her about, hey, the worst thing that could ever happen to you, that's already happened. Just, gotta breathe. And then they hear a bit of a rumbling. And that's the fire under her ass that she needs to get going because they've got a bit of a cave in happening here. And they make it through, losing a bag with half of their rope in the meantime. But yeah, that passage is donezo. They are indeed trapped.
Yeah.
And
I really like that line though about, the worst thing that could ever happen to you has already happened, because it's very true. I mean, at this point, like, what's worse than losing a child?
mhm,
I don't think there is anything um quite as traumatizing as that. I mean, that literally is your world, right?
mhm.
So yeah, I think that that really in that moment was both the worst thing and the best thing to probably say.
Yeah, is something to get her ass in gear. Sarah also gets knocked out at this point. This happens a few times to her in this film, and again, dreams of cake and candles. And she comes to, and everybody's fucking freaked out, and they're all trying to figure out what the fuck to do, what's going on. And here is where Juno admits that this is not the cave they were looking for. This
I didn't bring the book. Why didn't you bring the book? Because this
um,
isn't the
hmm,
cave.
yep. And the rest of them are noticeably upset.
Yep.
This is not good.
Mm-mm.
Um, Juno says she wanted them to explore this new cave and make these discoveries together. Oh, be careful what you wish for, my dear. Um, yeah. And again, does she really want that? I think this is just her own ego talking,
Oh,
which,
absolutely an ego trip for sure.
yes,
She
this,
saw this as an opportunity way
mhm,
more than a way to help her friend.
yep, absolutely, she did. It's always about her. It's,
Yeah.
she's the one that was helping to break up a marriage, at one point. Of course, it's always about her. It's
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So they argue about their next plan of action, and Sarah again wanders off. Stop doing that, Sarah. God. But as she does, she's playing around with her light, and she definitely notices something. It's one of those blink and you miss it things too. Um, but yeah, there's like just a little bit of an outline or a little bit of a shadow or something of something.
Now, if I remember correctly, there's another monster that's already been seen before this point. It's just not pointed out. Um, it's like
I,
a very quick in the background, like
oh, this is that
thing.
point. Yeah, because
Well,
this
no,
is
no, no.
not
I'm saying that
hers.
none of them notice it.
Right. Exactly.
Oh,
It's
is
one of
that
the,
this one?
that is this one. Yeah,
Okay,
where
okay,
there's
okay.
like this little outcropping of rock, and you can't even tell what it is, but the light plays across it, and then she brings the light back, and that thing, whatever it is no longer there. Um, yeah, and she, has this look of like what on her face, but just kind of pushes that off because of the situation. We got to figure out what the hell we're going to do here. Um, and they find another tunnel to crawl through. And of course, when they come out the other side, they face this almost bottomless chasm. Uh, they even, light up a few flares and everything. And then one of them drops a rock. I think it's Beth. And somebody says, "Oh, thanks. Now I know how deep it is." Because it would be pointless. It's
Right.
so deep. Um, and yes, Rebecca now is going to try to climb her way across the ceiling using I forget what you call them, but these little devices that wedge themselves into the rock so that you can snap some carabiners on them and string a line across.
Oh my god. It's like
It's
not a
not a piton
climbing.
because that's what they
Yeah.
find, and that would have been like a really old school, the kind of thing you would have hammered into rock.
Right.
Um, but yeah, her struggle to make her way across here, across the ceiling of this chamber. Um, this is not a sport for people with rotator cuff issues. That's for sure. Um, I'm
uh
just saying.
Real quick, there are way too many rock climbing terms that I've never heard of. I thought I would just try and see if I could find it real quick. And there's like literally an A to Z list, and every
Oh
single
God.
category has like more than 10 entries in it. So I'm not gonna do that one. That one
Yep.
goes bye
Yep. We're just gonna
bye.
say the device. They only have 3 or 4 of the device, and yeah, she does make her way across, but only by using a very very old piton that she finds, and that's what is able to get her the rest of the way across. And they throw a rope and they rig up a system where they can basically do the cliffhanger thing of working their way across.
God,
And
that's a movie I haven't thought of in a long time.
I know, right? It's just there waiting for you.
There's another one with Sylvester Stallone, not Cliffhanger. The one where he's like they're in the tunnel.
Oh,
Um
is it Daylight?
I think Daylight is it because that's what my thought was. God, I haven't thought about either of those movies in forever. Thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah. Happy to help. Um, so they one by one make their way across, and Juno's the last one, but she wants to conserve their gear because she figures they're going to need every bit and piece of it. So she unties the rope, throws it back over, tells him to pull it up, and she makes her way across the ceiling, and grabbing the bits and pieces on the way. And that piton breaks free, and Jesus, Rebecca tears the shit out of her hand by trying to grab onto the rope as it's slipping away. Um, And just barely, they're able to save Juno. Yeah, this is effective. This is stressful. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call this movie a slow burn because there's something constantly happening in it.
oh yeah.
But what I will say is that it does a great job at always raising the stakes, building more tension. As soon as you think, oh, this is it, this is where it's going to break, this is where everything's going to start happening. Nah, you still got way more to go.
Hmm.
And it's beautifully done in my opinion. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
one thing that I completely missed before all this happens, when it's just down to Sarah and Juno, and Sarah needs to make her way across. Um, Sarah says to her, "Was this about me or you?" And
literally what
Juno,
we were talking about a minute ago.
exactly. And Juno's just like, "It's about us getting back to what we used to be." And it's like, no, no, we know, we know. This is just your ego again. Um, so yes, Rebecca's hand is bleeding profusely. And as they bandage her up and they haul Juno up, they realize, oh, this is climbing gear from like 100 years ago.
Yep.
Um, Yikes. We're doomed. We're doomed. And yeah, they kind of are. Um, Holly sets out to find a way through, and this is where they find the drawings on the cave walls, which is interesting. But Juno's like, nah, our batteries are going to run out. We can't just stand here looking at this stuff.
Yeah, this is cool and all, but we need to get going.
Yep. But Beth sees something as they're, barely able to see things, and she convinces her to, spark up a flare so they can get a better look. And this is where they see that here's the mountain, here's the entrance that we came through, and it looks like there's another entrance on the other side. So there may indeed be a way out.
Two entrances, yeah.
Hmm. And this is where we also get a creature, observing them from the darkness, and we hear a little bit of a growl.
This
Which,
is the one that I was thinking of.
yeah, where
Where
nobody
there
sees it.
nobody
They all
even
have their
notices it.
backs turned.
Yeah.
Yes.
I couldn't remember if that happened already or if it happened. Yeah, okay. So yes, this is the one that I was thinking of.
Gotcha. The one that I'm thinking of is just the very subtle one. It's blink
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
miss it.
I literally just watched a video of that one to remind myself.
Yeah.
Even though I just watched the movie this morning.
Same.
um
Same.
but yeah, so this was the one that I was thinking of. I for some reason thought this one happened before the other one.
Mm-hmm. And we definitely get the sense that these critters are goopy, because they are.
Oh man,
Because
this whole movie is very wet.
yes, impossibly wet. So they find another passageway, kind of using airflow as their guide. They bring out a lighter and they see, the direction of the flame and all that shit. And Holly just goes tearing off, and unfortunately she slips and falls down a deeper passage and ends up with a nice compound fracture, which is super neat. Um,
And this is where the movie really starts.
yes. Yes, I can't think where they are time wise in the film, but this is where things really take off for sure.
Now,
Uh,
I speaking of how we have with Holly and her being stupid and doing a bunch of dumb stuff. Did you feel bad for her when this happened?
yes and no. Um, at a certain point, it's a horror film.
I
You
feel
just
like
expect people to be fodder.
I
But
feel like I was more disturbed at how good they made that broken leg look or broken you know,
yeah, yeah,
bone
oh
broken
yeah.
bone look.
Compound fractures are neat, and always, give you a good skin crawl for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so they provide some first aid here, and it's fucking brutal. There's just blood and obvious pain and so on. And Sarah wanders off yet again.
Again.
And this is where she finds like a miner's helmet or something like that. And, why she doesn't bring it back to show the rest of the group is weird. But and then we cut back to the gang working on Holly,
Wait,
and
is this the part where she sees something?
almost.
Okay, okay,
Um,
okay.
so
Because
they
I
tell,
feel like that would be a great reason for her not to bring the helmet back, right? It'd be
yeah,
if she
that
saw
could have been
something
it, yeah.
and
But she
then just
puts it
ditched the helmet.
down, and I think
Right.
that's when she sees it. But in the meantime, they're telling Holly, okay, to dress this wound, we're gonna have to push the bone
Yeah, we're
back
gonna have to
in.
set it. Ooh.
I forget what they use as a splint, but that'll come back later. It may have been a climbing axe.
I
I
think it was a
can't.
climbing accident.
Okay.
It's amazing that we both watched it this morning
I
and
I
can't
know.
remember.
I know. Well, there's a lot of other detail that we're paying attention to, I suppose.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah. And then we cut back to Sarah, where she hears a bit of a growl in the darkness, and she sees this creature, very golem-like, taking a drink. And then it spots her, and it runs off, and Juno comes up behind her, and she's like trying to tell the gang what she saw, but nobody believes her, specifically Juno.
These things
Um,
are what Gollum would have looked like if they did a practical effect instead of a CG character.
yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. And just think, this film was like a couple of years after Return of the King.
Right.
Um, oof. So Juno explains that the
Wait, hold
daylight
on.
that, oh,
I I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just had the image flash in my head of one of them saying "My precious," and it made me laugh, so I had to share.
fair, that's
Just
fair.
imagine Gollum's voice coming. Now I want to make that edit. Wait, like
Oh,
rolling its head around and saying "My precious." Man, okay.
mm-hmm.
I have
That
a future project.
There you go. It could be the scene where the one crawler, because apparently that's what these creatures are called,
Yeah.
is like defending its food.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. My precious. Oh God.
yes, there you
It
go.
writes itself. Okay,
Yes, it
sorry, sorry,
does.
sorry.
No, you're good. So the reason that Holly had run off originally, not just because she's desperately trying to find a way out, but also because she thought she saw daylight. And Juno explains, no, it's the phosphorus in the rock. You're not seeing daylight, you dumb shit. Um, and they continue on, kind of helping Holly hobble along because she can't walk. She can't put any weight on this leg.
They should have just called
Um,
her Hobbly.
yeah, there you go. Hobbling Holly. Um, and they make their way into another chamber, and it's something of Golgotha. There's just bones everywhere. Um, and somebody finally gets the bright idea, hey, let's use the night vision on the camera to look around. And people start panicking because they're still thinking of what Sarah said about seeing something, and they're in this place with all these bones and everything. And this is where we get the bit from the trailer, where I can't remember if it's Sam, Rebecca, or Beth who screams out, hello, is there anybody there? And the night vision camera turns over, and it's one of the crawlers standing right behind. It's either Sam or Beth. It's so
Yeah.
hard to tell in the night vision. And it kind of just bursts through them and does like a little slip and slide thing on the floor. Because again, everything is impossibly wet. And and everybody has a good freak out because yeah. What the fuck is this thing, right? And it crawls up the wall, and it's on the ceiling. They're all playing their lights off of it. And okay, it's like time to go. And they hear more of either the same creature or more of them screeching. And I think it's Juno that says something about they're circling us or something like this. And it attacks and basically tears Holly's throat out. And thank God, because she was dead weight anyways, right? Um, we get this great shot of arterial spray through the air,
Dude,
and she's
there's
just
so many great particle effect sequences in these shots, just practical, whether it's dirt flying, blood flying, something flying through the air.
Viscera. Yeah. Yeah. And Juno tries to help her. You know, she dead, girl. But this is the part where the crawler is defending its food, and it like
Right.
pushes her back, and they just continue to fight. Um, and everybody runs off. Beth falls in some water. Sarah falls and smacks her, thankfully helmet covered head, breaking the light on her helmet. And Sam and Rebecca, they, go their way. And this is where, we completely glossed over much earlier in the film. They make a Tomb Raider reference because of going into this deep, dark cave.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I meant to say that earlier and then I forgot.
Yeah, and this is where Juno, brings up that climbing axe, which is used to great effect in the reboots. Maybe about 10 years or so later, and she fights this thing off with the climbing axe, and it's awesome. Um, and then another crawler attacks her from behind. She gets the better of it, and then in her berserker rage, she ends up putting this axe through Beth's neck. Don't sneak up on somebody when they're swinging an axe around, is all I got to say. And not that Beth deserved this, but, it's
This
it's
is
like,
such a hard scene, right? Because in her mind, she's running towards safety. She's running towards
yes.
her friend. And all of a sudden, from Juno's perspective, she's fighting off these things. She doesn't know how many there are. She
Hmm.
hears something running up behind her. She swings.
Yeah, it's
And
very much an accident.
from Beth's point of view, she just got murdered by Juno. Like
Hmm.
that was it. And the worst part is that Juno doesn't have the response that Beth wanted, right? She wanted Juno to be like, it was an accident. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I thought you were one of them. We need to get you out of here. We need to save you. That's not the reaction Juno ends up having, which
No.
I find to be a very telling thing because we've talked about this entire time. It's all about Juno, it's all about her. So she goes into survival mode and she's like, I can't let anyone know I did this. I can't let anyone know that this happened. Bye, Beth.
Yep. And Beth grabs the necklace from Juno's neck as she drops to the ground. um Juno's absolutely the person in a zombie movie that if they got bitten would not tell the others that they got bitten.
Right, right.
um she's that one. um ugh,
And now
yeah,
we don't
that's
know the significance behind the necklace yet, do we?
not yet, no.
Okay.
But oh, it will indeed come back.
It's hard because we've seen the movie before, so we know what
Yeah.
the implication of the necklace is. So I'm just trying to remember, like, there is no part of this movie where we find out what that pendant is until here in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. So Beth goes down, and Sam and Becca are freaking the fuck out. And we cut to Sarah dreaming of her daughter Jessica, but there's a fun little twist this time because she turns into a crawler and she snaps awake. And of course, the night vision camera is pointed right at her face when she does so. It's a cool shot. 1 in a million chance that everything would land this way, but it's a cool shot. Um,
I'm happy that they used the kind of found footage stuff very minimally
mhm.
in the movie. I think it would have been an interesting film. If they had done it in a found footage, because they totally had the opportunity, right?
Oh yeah,
Like, this absolutely could have been a found footage film, and I think done right, it could have been really cool.
yeah,
But I did like when they used it. They used it in a way that helped the film rather than hindered it, which
yeah.
can always happen. Like, you're watching a movie and then they cut to a security camera, quote unquote, and then
Hmm.
it's like a regular camera with a gray filter that they threw some digital
Right,
numbers in front of or something. This
right.
felt like you were looking through a camcorder with night vision on.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. It works very much so. So she wakes up and she hears the scuttling and screeching in the distance. and she looks around with the camera and she finds more skulls and bones. And then Holly's body is unceremoniously dumped in front of her, and a bunch of smaller crawlers, probably children, come rushing in because it's feeding time.
Now, I'm gonna be honest. This scene's kind of heartbreaking, right?
Oh yeah.
In the sense of, if you think about this from the perspective of the crawlers, right? We're at this point kind of thinking of them as like these terrible monsters, these horrible creatures. But I mean, they've probably lived in this area of North Carolina for hundreds of years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And here these freaking people come in to their home and start wrecking shop. And
Mm-hmm.
now they're just trying to do feeding time. Mommy's trying to feed her babies, and this lady's
Yeah.
in here, and oof.
Yeah. This crew of spelunkers, they are indeed the enemy, right? Um, yeah. And so again, it's feeding time, and she just kind of backs up and tries to be quiet, right? Um, we cut to Sam and Rebecca. Continuing on, they turn off what lights they have and they just hunker down. They've got, one of those like light stick type things. I forget what the chemical's called, but the shit you go trick or treating with when you're a kid, right?
Yeah,
um,
the stuff they used for the original like Predator blood and
Predator,
stuff.
yeah. Yep. So they've got one of those, and you get the fun green cast. Just uh we talked earlier about how red is very appropriate for this film, red lighting, but also the green, very much so as well. It's a cool look. So they just hunker down and try to be quiet. And from here, Sarah, we got right back to Sarah, and she's about ready to puke watching these crawlers eat Holly. But this is where she finally gets the sense that, oh, they're blind, because there's one that hears her nearly retch and turns around, but her being relatively quiet, it doesn't sense her. Um, Again, through the night vision camera, we get a nice close up of this critter's face, and the practical effects, like you said, um, they could be maybe a little bit better with the creatures, but it still looks good. Let's be
Oh yeah,
fair, especially for
absolutely.
2005, it still looks good. Um, and let's see here. Um, Kind of lost my place. Apologies.
No, you're good.
Um, oh, Juno scares them off by calling for everyone. Um, and then Sam and Rebecca, they're trying to be extra quiet at this point because there is a crawler that has entered their space and it is climbing over them. And they manage to stay still and quiet enough that it passes them by. But then Rebecca's stupid watch that she was fumbling around with in the car ride to this place starts going off. Now, quickly, she rips it off her wrist and throws it as a way to lure the crawler away from them.
A
And then
lot
we're
of
back to,
foreshadowing in
oh,
those
yeah.
earlier conversations, and initial banter is so great.
Mm-hmm.
I where that like one of them is like, man, if somebody gave me that, I would have just thrown it away into a dumpster or whatever. So funny.
Mm-hmm. That works. Um, and we cut back to Juno just shouting like crazy. I mean, Juno, Jesus, stop shouting. Um, and then over to Sarah, who cuts the splint free from Holly's leg and she fashions it into a torch. Um, and then,
Oh yeah,
Bi-
so it must not have been a axe if she used it to make a torch.
yeah, I'm
We were
just,
talking earlier about what they
yeah.
used,
I-
and
At first,
if
I
they
thought, was it the piton that they grabbed out of the ceiling? But that wouldn't have been long enough. I
right.
don't know. It wasn't a bone. I don't know what this was. Again, we did a great job paying attention. Yay us. Um, but let's see here. She makes the torch, and then we cut back to Rebecca and Sam. They're trying to find a way out of their area, and we get that fun fake out of Rebecca looking down the one passageway, seeing that it's clear, going back to Sam, saying it's clear, sending Sam through, and then when Rebecca comes through, we get a crawler attack. It works.
Yep.
That works. You can kind of see it coming, but it works. And then Sam. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just kidding. They're not worried about subterfuge at this point. Like
No,
they're just like go, 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 go.
they're barreling through. They're taking a page from Aliens, where things just don't let up. Right.
I thought of Aliens a lot during this rewatch. There's a scene here in a little bit where there's a bunch of them crawling in a tunnel, and it totally reminds me of that sequence when there's a bunch of aliens like waking up and crawling out in that one room that the Marines go into.
Mm-hmm.
Totally reminded me of that.
Or the part where they're above the ceiling tiles.
Yeah.
It's wonderful inspiration that hopefully never dies. But let's see here. Sam runs away and Rebecca tries to fight the crawler. She's got an axe of her own. She's not much of a fighter. And as she's struggling with this thing, Juno throws her fucking axe into the back of this thing and then just walks up and snaps the fucker's neck.
Like straight action movie status.
Yeah. She, in this moment, is the badass that she thinks she is. But it is kind of cool, let's be fair. So Juno lies about Beth at this moment. It's more of a lie of omission, but that still counts. Because the girls, they ask, hey, what about Beth? What about Sarah? And she's just like, yeah, Beth's gone. Or whatever. If you can't own up to it in this moment, you're just,
Okay,
and
real quick. What would the Arnold quote be for throwing the climbing axe and then breaking the neck? I don't know why, but I'm like, that seems like one of those moments, right? We joked about it being straight out of an action movie, but like I'm just trying to think of what that one would be. Like,
I have a question. Yeah.
I really gave you a twist.
Yes. I have a question to ask you and make it snappy.
Oh, there you go. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, you're right. If this were an Arnold movie from 20 years prior, there would have been some type of a one-liner in this moment.
Some sort of one-liner, yeah.
Yeah, like the Predator, stick around.
Right. I mean, yeah, there's always a good Arnold quote somewhere, but stick around is one of the best ones when he throws the Bowie knife.
Mm-hmm. And then we get into some heavy exposition at this point. About,
oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, about what these things are, how they possibly could have evolved this way, how they're blind and they use echolocation like bats. It's like you're really picking up a lot from these past 5 minutes. It's cool.
You are terrified out of your mind. And yet, Juno is forcing you to tell her what these creatures are before letting you leave, I guess. And you're making a lot of leaps in logic on how they work and function.
I mean, it's all correct, but
right.
You just,
yeah. I mean, I want to know, if there was a sequence where like they analyzed the one with the broken neck and like did a one of those dumb autopsies, like they pulled it onto a little stone tablet and took the mountain climbing axe and like cut its belly open, and they're like, she reaches inside, there's like a goopy effect, they pull out some organs and she's like, wow, these are human, like these are us, these things, they used to be us. And then she like flops it down and starts inspecting the ears, and she's like, oh wow, if I had to judge, I'd say that these ears evolved and developed for hypersensitive hearing, and they probably use screaming and clicking for echolocation.
To be fair, they do poke around the eyes quite a bit. Oh yeah, they're blind.
There's some literal eye poking here in a minute.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. That's true. So they make a comment, I think it's Juno, about not leaving without Sarah. Um, God, you want to make up for things you've done, but you don't really, do you? Um,
right.
and let's see here. This is where Sarah finds Beth, and she ain't dead,
Oh,
but she's on her way out. And I don't know how Beth is able to speak still.
right.
It's But, she took an axe through her neck and it missed her vocal cords, I guess.
It
But
definitely hit the most vital area it needed to, but completely missed the vocal
yeah,
cords.
the fact that she hasn't bled out yet is a fucking miracle.
The fact that she's not choking on blood, the fact that she can
Hmm.
talk through the blood buildup in her neck, the swelling in her neck, all these different things that should be happening, unless there's some time dilation happening here where she got hit in the neck like minutes ago,
Yeah.
and then it's just like they missed each other, but because it's a movie they wanted to show you each thing that was happening, and it's actually only been a few minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe the blood hadn't pooled in as much as it would have, and maybe there hasn't been a shit
Oh,
ton of
God.
swelling yet, but
I don't know, man. I don't know. But at the end of the day, we just have to throw our hands up and say, it's a movie.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so Beth tells Sarah not to trust Juno, and she hands her the necklace and tells her that it was from Paul. And she flips it over, and on
And
the
then
back it says,
apologizes.
"Yes, yes." They flip over the necklace, and you see on the back it says, "Love each day." It's some live, laugh, love bullshit. Um, and
Which is a reference to earlier in the movie when she says love each day, and
gotcha, totally missed that.
someone's like whatever, and then she says it's something Paul used to say, and
Hmm.
that's Sarah saying that. And then for the necklace, the pendant, to have that, it confirms
Gotcha.
this had to have come from Paul.
Yep. Yep. Totally missed that. And yes, Beth apologizes, but then also asks Sarah to kill her. And Sarah's like, I can't do that. And 30 seconds later, picks up a rock and bashes her head in.
Yeah,
Um,
quite
there, there,
brutally.
there's a real flip there very quickly. Um,
To be fair though, this whole kind of this everything after she gets knocked out, she's
mhm.
almost like a completely different person in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Like
well, a head
there's
injury will do that to you. Um, So then, right after she takes out Beth, there's a crawler that pops out of nowhere and Sarah kills it. And it turns out it's just a little guy. And
I
mom
I
is not happy.
I want to point out here that if you listen to the sounds that are coming out of this crawler, it sounds like they recorded like a baby crying, like a somewhere between
Oof.
2 and 4 year old, like screaming or crying for the sounds that this thing makes. And
Yeah.
it sounds weirdly out of place because it's not like, you know, um it doesn't necessarily sound like it's coming from the creature, because of the way it's the intervals in which it's screaming, is a
Mhm.
little strange, but at the same time the implication is there. And yeah, it sounds like a little child screaming as she fucking murders it.
Yeah. And yes, mom pops up and Sarah's like, nope, don't want to deal with that. And she runs the other way, headlong
I
into a. Oh, I'm sorry. Go
so,
ahead.
Sorry, there's a very humanizing moment here
Oh, yeah.
where the mother crawls over the corpse of her little child and sniffs it, and you literally hear like her mournful cry
Hmm.
that obviously builds into rage, but uh it reaffirms the fact that like they are causing destruction in the creatures home.
Yes. Yeah, they came into their house and fucked stuff up. Yes. Um so yeah, Sarah runs headlong into this giant pool of like blood and gore, and we get the apocalypse now shot of her rising out of this pool covered in blood and viscera. Um and so does the crawler mama, because she attacks her. And Sarah manages to find an antler and stab her in the eye. And she just sinks back down into the pool.
One of numerous
And
eye pokes to come.
oh, yes, yes. And then another crawler enters and crawls over her, and she stays still and then gets up and just kills it using a bone as a club. And then for
Now,
some reason, she wants to scream out no like Vader at the end of Revenge of the Sith. Um,
now this one is this is the moment where like she's laying there quiet and it crawls out and she's literally got like a hand on her, right?
yeah, it's on her head. And
Yeah.
this thing is looking around. And it's like, you're not noticing that this is, kind of squishy and a little warm.
Yeah, I'm
It's,
wondering I'm wondering if this is an implication that their like hands are super calloused because they're
it
crawling
could be.
around on rocks all the
It
time.
could be.
Not necessarily like this is saying that, but like a reason as to why it may not feel her is because it's it walks around on mostly all fours and is
Yeah.
able to grip the ceiling of a rock and hang from it. So I imagine it's got very calloused, unfeeling hands for the most part.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Um, hmm. I don't know, but she fucks this thing up with that bone.
Yeah, she does.
Eh,
Oh man.
oh, and then we cut to Juno, and we get that scene that you're talking about from Aliens, how she turns around with her light, and there's a very large pack of crawlers
Yep.
assembling, and she runs. Um, and then we cut back to Sam coming to another chasm, and she tries to crawl across the ceiling. Juno and Rebecca meet up, and they watch as this crawler on the ceiling just tears out Sam's throat.
All the while, Juno is saying, "There's not enough rope. Come back down. Don't do this. Don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
Stop. Come back down." And yeah, she does get some revenge though. Little bit of
Oh yeah,
revenge.
oh yeah. And then just immediately, Rebecca is grabbed and eaten alive in front of Juno. Um, just kind of out of nowhere, but
Yeah.
it is graphic. And Juno just jumps into the water in this chasm and comes face to face with. I think the light stick fell into the water because everything has the green glow down there.
Hmm.
And she comes face to face with I don't know if it was the crawler from the ceiling or what, but of course its eyes open, and but she just stabs the fucker and is done with it. That was I kind of wish there was more of a fight in the water, but
Sure.
whatever. And then she
It is a cool effect though, seeing the blood kind of pool out of its head.
Yes. Yeah, I like that. So she climbs out of the water and kind of scuttles up the side to the other side of the chasm. It's like, why couldn't they have just done this if the water wasn't too far down and everything? I guess you can't just assume that the water would be deep enough to jump into. She did it out of desperation.
Right.
But she climbs up the other side and runs into Sarah, who pulls her inside this little niche.
Like a freaking ninja, man.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and she's covered in blood and gore, and Juno's like, "What happened to you?" Um yeah. And Sarah kind of traps Juno in a lie about Beth.
Oh
But
man,
leads her
so
on.
hard.
Mm-hmm.
You saw her die? Yeah.
Okay, then this way. Yeah. Um. So they run into a gang of crawlers, and they're surrounding them, and they kind of do that back to back, getting prepared to fight thing, which is cool. It works for me.
Yeah, throughout this entire sequence though, I was like, don't get close to Juno. Don't get close to Juno.
Yeah, because she starts swinging that axe, and you need to watch out. Oh God! And they fight him off pretty effectively. Sarah pulls a total Roy Batty on this one crawler by punching through its eyes with her
Yeah.
thumbs.
So there's three of them here, and she's fighting two of them, and then Juno's fighting one of them, and she kills the one that like grabs her from behind somehow. I don't remember how. And then yeah, then she turns back to the one she's got on the ground. And yeah, completely 28 days later or whatever
Blade Runner.
whatever Blade Runner eye popping movie you want to pull. It's that through and through. But I will say they go a little further in this movie, right? Where like not only do you get the thumbs plunging into the eye sockets, but like even after it's dead, she like wiggles her fingers around in the sockets to like
And
make sure.
and then even though she's covered in all this gore and viscera, she takes a moment to wipe her hands
Wipe
on
her
her
hands
pants.
on her pants, which are already covered in blood. Like,
Yes. Oh my God, is it something? She stands back up
uh,
and faces Juno, who smiles at her in their victory.
yeah, because
Eh,
Juno at this point had just smashed the one she was fighting against a rock enough time for blood to spurt out of its head like a fountain.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Sarah's got the axe in one hand and a closed fist where she releases the necklace on its
Wait,
chain.
so she's got a flare in one hand,
Oh, it's a
like,
flare. I'm sorry. I
and
thought it
then
was an axe of her own.
and no,
Um,
she has an axe as well. But in that axe hand, that's where the pendant falls down. It's in her axe
gotcha.
hand that
And you
the
see the
pendant is.
realization on Juno's face, like, oh fuck.
Yep.
Yeah. And yeah,
It
there's
lingers here for a minute. It
oh
lingers on
yeah.
this moment for quite a
Yeah.
while, it feels like.
And they get screeching all around them of more crawlers coming. So Sarah just hauls off and drives that axe through Juno's leg,
I
wounding
love
her and trapping her.
I love how wide this swing is. It's like this impossibly wide. Like if Juno had any reaction time whatsoever, she could have stopped it from happening.
I think she's just stunned from
In
being
shock,
found out.
right?
Um
All the different processes going through her head. But like even still, you don't exactly know where she's gonna hit Juno until almost the final moment when she starts going downward with the swing.
yeah,
And it makes me wonder, like, did she even know what she was gonna do at first?
I think she did. I think she was all about wounding her so she would be trapped down there
She
and
just wanted
she'd
to
be
make sure that she went through the knee.
mhm. And so, yeah, Sarah fucks off, and Juno kind of prepares for the inevitable, right?
Dude,
Um,
like a beast, she pulls out that climbing axe from her leg
mhm.
and is still able to stand. I'm 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 not sure how, but it's, I mean, I guess adrenaline, but
Sure.
man, man, with the way those things are designed with the ridges and everything, like
Oh,
just
yeah, that would hurt
imagining.
like a son of a bitch.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it hits her literally where the joint is, right? So, I mean, you're talking tendons, you're talking, the scapula, like all that stuff is just getting wrecked. And then she's pulling it back out too, which is taking chunks of meat and vein and
Mhm.
ugh, ugh.
Yeah, it's not so good, not so good. And yeah, she still does it, and she squares off against the approaching crawlers, and that's the last we see of her.
Nom 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 nom.
Yep. Yep. And Sarah falls down a tunnel here, but finds daylight.
Real
And
daylight this time,
yeah, yeah, she basically climbs up a mountain of bones towards this daylight.
which looks really cool.
Oh God, yeah. She ascends, and in one of the most brightly lit shots of this film, she bursts through the ground like a corpse rising from the grave. It is fucking awesome. We've all seen the GIF over and over again. It's great. It's one of the best shots of this film. Um, and she spends her run to the trucks screaming the whole way.
I mean, I would too probably.
Yeah. Yeah. She's finally, I think, coming to terms with all the horror she has just experienced. But she does make it back to the trucks. I can't believe they left the keys on the visor.
Oh, classic, right? Classic freaking yeah.
I,
I mean,
I,
you might lose them in the cave. You
I suppose, but I would be terrified that I'd come back up and no truck.
you got to remember though, this is like an uncharted part of the forest with an uncharted cave where
I
nobody's supposed to
guess.
be. So, what are the chances that somebody's actually going to wander up there? What are the chances that another Juno is going to be like, "Hey, let's go check out this spot"?
I guess. Cut to a shot of one of the crawlers driving the truck down the highway. Woo!
Oh man. Okay,
Oh
but she
god.
gets to the vehicle, pulls down the
Yeah.
visor.
Yes. And she hauls ass out of there. And I love all these exterior shots of her driving. They're fucking gorgeous. Again,
Yep.
it's just really great camera work from other vehicles. There's a few overhead shots. They probably used a fucking helicopter to do it or something. I don't know. But
Yeah,
it
so
all
that
looks so good.
I imagine that's like I didn't think about it. I was talking earlier when whether or not they use stock footage or they rented a helicopter. So they probably did all those shots at once. They rented the
That makes
helicopter
sense.
for a day, and that was either one of the last things they did or one of the first things they did was just do all those shots of her
Mhm.
driving and of those like sweeping trees and stuff, so they could get that all out of the way at once.
Oh, it looks fantastic and honestly does remind me a bit of some of the driving shots from Dog Soldiers.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, she makes it to the highway and pulls over to the side of the road to have a well-deserved meltdown. Um, and she's kind of
Or is
startled
it?
out. Yeah, she is startled out of her reverie by this logging truck, Final Destination 2, driving by and blaring its horn at her because she's not completely off the road. And so she rolls down the window to vomit, like you do. And when she brings her head back into the truck, she's surprised by a ghostly Juno and she screams and credits with the group photo. Damn.
And then of
Oh, this
course
film.
there's the theory of did she actually, ever actually make it out of the cave,
Yes, because there is that alternate ending where they cut from there back to her just,
waking up.
yeah, waking up in the cave and she's got like her dying lights or a torch or whatever, just
Nope,
coming to the realization that this is her home now.
she never made it out. Um, so I have a question.
Yeah.
There's always this idea of is someone suddenly becoming badass, suddenly becoming adjusted to the situation,
Hmm.
is it earned? And so, for example, I love 28 Days Later. I love that movie to death. But that sequence towards the end of the movie where the main character takes his shirt off and starts
Yeah.
running around like a ninja, taking out these military dudes
Yeah.
and
Killian Murphy just
facing off with
wrecking shop. Yeah.
yeah, not warranted at all. Like
No.
for some people, I know
Is it
for a
cool as
fact that
hell?
it
Yes. But
yes. But I know for a fact that it took some people out of the movie, right?
yeah.
Because all of a sudden he was just a badass, and there was no indication that he had that inside of him until that moment. But you could argue that everyone has that inside of them. They just need to pass that breaking point, right? Maybe that was his, and even though he had no training or aptitude for it, he could suddenly do all of it. Do you think Sarah's kind of sudden change in demeanor, where she just all of a sudden becomes a badass, is warranted in this movie? Because for me, it's hard to say because we don't get a lot of experience with her prior to this, the descent. Um, but at the same time, we know she's athletic. We know
Mhm.
she's someone who has been in high adrenaline situations. We know that she um can handle herself, but you know, it's interesting to think about the sudden switch that flips in that one part of the movie where all of a sudden she's just maiming and wrecking these poor creatures.
I think it's a combination of things. It's the her learning of Juno's betrayal from Beth, having to kill Beth having to fight to survive and kill several more of these crawlers in just horrific ways, fighting for her life. Also, just that sort of rebirth from the pool of blood and
Right.
gore. Um, I think kind of all of those things sort of crystallize in this her kind of losing her mind to a certain degree, because not only does she become this badass towards the end of the film, but she's very much a broken badass. You know, she's suddenly very quiet and, only speaks in, just sort of action movie language of let's go, come on, over here, that kind of thing. Um, she doesn't even say anything to Juno when she shows her the necklace.
Right. But I think that's what makes it so impactful at the same time, is because Juno
Hmm.
knows. But yeah, I feel like for some reason for me in this movie that I feel like it works. It works in a way where in 28 Days Later, for some people it doesn't. You know, it's definitely an interesting thing, and we see it all the time in movies, right? Where
Mhm.
that ending climax, there's just a shift in the character.
Yeah.
So I just like to bring it up and see how people feel about it. Um, so, a couple things really quick.
Mm,
This movie had a budget of like $5 million.
Jesus.
I don't even. I did not know that. I just looked it up because I wanted to see, and that blows my mind. I mean, I can't see a movie this good being produced on a budget that small. That makes me. We were joking about more money earlier.
Yeah.
Um, and I realized that like none of these actors in the film uh were super huge at the time. Like I can't
Mhm.
really pick one of them out and say like at in 2005 that any of them were like big actors. um so that's probably part of it. And then a lot of it's the set, right? But how much, I wonder how much of the set was already built. Here, I actually have a thing on that too, hang on.
Ah, cool.
The cave isn't real. As anyone who knows anything about caving will attest, it certainly isn't without its hazards. Trying to mount a whole film production like this inside of a real cave was a bit too daunting, so producers opted to build the cave sets instead. While the movie takes place in North Carolina, the sets were built outside of London at the legendary Pinewood Studios. Pinewood's esteemed history includes several James Bond films, Tim Burton's Batman movies, which, I mean, great Gotham set,
Mhm.
the Avengers films, and many Star Wars franchise entries. The movie's exterior shots were done in Scotland, so not North Carolina at all.
Mm. Also, Batman
um,
89, also impossibly wet.
Impossibly wet for sure. But yeah, so the built for the movie. That's pretty cool.
Mm.
Huh.
You know what? I got to say it right now before I forget. If you've made it this far into this podcast, please leave impossibly wet in the comments below.
Nice.
Oh God. That's interesting. It's just this and another film that I've talked about recently. Just the whole incredibly tight, tiny budget seeming to be what makes the film as interesting and as good as it is. It's just that whole necessity being the mother of invention thing, right? Where it forces you to make choices based on that budget that ultimately are for the better in this film. Like
Right.
we talked about, you could have had a higher budget and you could have thrown that at the practical effects, the creature design, all of that. But for the most part, they're all in shadows and everything, anyways.
Right.
And it looks good.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of floored. Uh I don't know. I used to think, $20 million was a small budget movie,
Right.
right? But Paranormal Activity obviously changed that when it made a movie on a $10,000 budget that ended up making 100 times whatever its value was, 1,000 times.
Hmm.
Um, but that's crazy. I mean, like we were saying earlier, this movie stands the test of time. It's super good up to today's standards. You know, we'll be able to watch this movie 20 years from now and still think about how good it looks.
Yeah.
And it had literally 1/50th of the budget of like an average movie now.
Yeah. It's shocking. It's
Like, I mean, the average movie I feel like now is between 70 and 150 million dollars.
hmm And then you
This
have
is,
marketing budget on top of that.
yeah, on top of that. Yeah.
So if you're not making
Wild.
like 3 times your budget, in
Yeah,
box office,
you're
you're fucked.
basically losing
Yeah.
money, yeah. Matt Damon talked about that in movies that he makes. You know, it's like, why don't we see the movies that we used to in theaters, the movies that you make, the movies that we grew up with? And Matt Damon clearly stated that it's because of digital streaming. With the digital marketplace, people aren't out there buying DVDs. There's no second life. There's no second shelf life, or at least
Yeah,
not
that's
nearly as
true.
much as there used to be. So if you're not making, let's say your movie is $10 million, then you have a $10 million advertising budget. So you've put $20 million into this production. If you're not making $60 million, you're basically coming out at a loss for the movie. And
Yeah,
it's
because there
wild.
used to
It's
be
wild to
all
think about.
these films that, just were not exactly bombs in their theatrical run, but close enough. And yeah, you're right. The secondary market of physical media sales would,
Right.
ultimately take something that you could have said bombed, and suddenly you're getting a sequel because they made enough.
Yeah, and those movies become cult classics,
hmm
like Rocky Horror Picture Show is a great example
Yeah.
of a movie that has a ridiculously huge following that didn't do well in theaters. And it's so interesting to see the market that we're in now, especially with Netflix just throwing movie or money at things like Day Shift, for example, which seems like it has pretty high production values. Jamie Foxx isn't cheap. I imagine Snoop Dogg's not cheap. And the movie
Dave
looks really good.
Franco.
It's got a lot of
Eh.
yeah, I know. I didn't include it for a reason. um and I don't know if you've seen Day Shift, but
Not yet.
I will scream at the top of my lungs for everyone to go watch this movie. It's not a good movie, it's a
Oh, but
fun
it looks
movie.
like fun. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and they actually hired contortionists for the vampires so that
Nice.
they could do a lot of the effects practically when they were like, like hitting him with a bat and having him bend fully backwards or
hmm
something of that nature.
You love
And
seeing that.
oh man, it is so cool. They had a pretty large group of contortionists for this film so they could have a bunch of different looking vampires. And it's a super fun movie. I recommend everyone check out Day Shift. But the point of my of my statement
Right.
is they're just throwing money at these things and then getting, you know, $15 a month, $20 a month from an ever declining range of people who are paying for it. And it's such an interesting thing to think about. And then on top of that, you've got production studios who are trying to find where their movie's going to land. I mean, look at Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers is trying to pawn off stuff that they're making or have made on different streaming services instead of their own so that they can try and make some front-loaded money back on these projects before they hit streaming services. And just crazy. The entire thing is so crazy to think about the world we live in, and I'm very intrigued to see where the world of movies goes in the
Yeah,
next like
it's
10,
well.
15
Then
years.
you got the fucking pandemic on top of that.
Right.
It's just it's this ever shifting landscape, and yeah, I'm very curious to see how it all plays out. But yeah, I can't say that streaming is really helping where we're going. Sure, it's nice on the consumer side of things.
Oh, absolutely.
Is never ending. You have absolute decision paralysis trying to pick something on a whim. You
Yeah,
know.
for example, I mean, I am part of the problem. I own The Descent. I could have put it in my DVD player. What did I do instead? it was free to watch on Amazon Prime. So I loaded up Amazon Prime and watched it. If you're listening to this and you've gotten this far and you haven't seen The Descent and you feel like we sold you on it, even though we spoiled absolutely everything about the movie, you can go watch it for free on Amazon Prime right now. Hashtag not sponsored.
Yes.
A couple other cool things about the movie. Classic influences. In an interview with IndieWire, Marshall said the idea to set the film in a cave came to him on a train ride, and he drew upon his own trip into a cave he took at age 10. A huge fan of filmmakers like Ridley Scott, John Carpenter, and John Carpenter. Uh, Marshall has spoken about the influence of a handful of films on the look and feel of The Descent. There's the claustrophobic confinement of Alien, obviously Aliens, so he didn't want to throw that in this article, apparently, or in this interview. The slow turn towards the madness of The Shining, and the
Hmm.
adventure gone wrong of Deliverance. There's a bit of the thing in play as well, plus the overall H.P. Lovecraft themes of a descent into madness, which, definitely plays into it for sure.
Yeah.
As we were talking about at the beginning, there was a lot of the hearing things, seeing things, especially for our main character Sarah, with seeing her daughter or whatever else, and very interesting.
Yeah, just straight up shots that are lifted from other things, like the Apocalypse Now moment of Sarah rising out of the pool, just like what's his face? Shit, um, totally blanking. Martin Sheen.
Oh,
Um, yeah, and yeah, there's so much. And I'm sure this is a film that will inspire others down the road. I mean, there's a whole generation of filmmakers that grew up watching these films that we're gushing about from the aughts
yeah.
that it'll be
uh
interesting.
I got another fun one for you. A nocturnal Easter egg. When Sarah falls into the discarded bones from the crawler's previous meals, there's a wolf skull, in a nod to director Neil Marshall's 2002 werewolf thriller, Dog Soldiers.
There you go.
I did not know. I've seen this movie many, many times, and I don't think I've
Well,
ever noticed that. I
yeah,
gotta watch it
there
for the first
is like
time.
a wolf's head. It still has the fur and everything.
Huh.
Um, but yeah, it's yep, absolutely noticed that this morning.
I will have
Um,
to go back and check that out because that's cool.
mm,
Seeing if there's any other cool things on here before I. The original poster, the London bombings of July 2005, changed the course of the movie's marketing. Originally, posters for The Descent around England featured an image of a single woman screaming in a tunnel, with a quote declaring the film's outright terror. The film's UK distributor made new posters with all of the female cavers standing together and fighting back. Wow, I don't think I've ever seen the UK poster for this. A
hmm,
representative said that at the time that seemed to chime with the prevailing mood of defiance that was set after the weekend's bombings.
interesting.
Um, and
I
then the
just remember
American
the
poster.
yeah, the
Oh, go ahead.
poster with the ladies forming the skull
Yeah,
as like a fun callback to Silence of the Lambs with the poster where there's the moth with the skull on its back, but the skull is made from women.
right. Yes, so it's actually based on a photograph of surrealist painter Salvador Dali's work, which
Hmm.
itself features one of Dali's works. So it's like a representation of one of his paintings. And then the same female bodies as the skull was part of the posters for the art of Silence of the Lambs.
Okay,
So
cool.
yeah, interesting. But yeah, that's The Descent. It was a lot of
Yeah.
fun. Fun
Oh
movie to
hell yeah.
talk about.
This movie absolutely rips. Like we talked about many times over this podcast. Um, it doesn't really let up after a certain point. You know,
Right.
you get some wonderful build up that's a ton of fun with a ton of things that will be used as callbacks later, which is always a good time. Um, and it's doesn't overstay its welcome in any way. It's like somewhere between an hour and an hour and 45, something like that.
Yeah, hour and 38 minutes, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. Once again, that lovely sweet spot of an hour and a half horror movie. Yeah, not everything needs to be the director's cut of Doctor Sleep.
Not everything
And
needs to be the Snyder cut of the Justice
ugh,
League.
um, which in some way was
uh,
still an improvement, but
somehow.
oh
I
my god,
I
it's painful.
I'm really sad that they decided not to turn that into a 4-part miniseries.
Yeah.
Because that would have been so much easier to digest. I still have nightmares about, needing to go to the restroom while watching that movie. Um and then
Yeah.
finding out that I was only an hour in. Uh
Oh god. There's 3 more hours. Oh,
yeah,
Jesus.
but
Well, Phil,
I
it's been an
I had a lot of
absolute
fun.
pleasure having you on this
Absolutely.
one. We will find something else to talk about at some point because I like talking movies with you, man.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
yeah, Phil, if you'd like, where can people find you?
Uh, at the moment, nowhere. It feels like we haven't done anything with Simply Sassy for a while, but if you want to check us out, you can check out Simply Sassy Vids on YouTube. I'm always available on Twitter at Phil with 2 L's J Woodward on Twitter, and hopefully starting soon, I'll be streaming again. Phillip J Woodward. We're starting with Tifu, which is a version of Sifu where I have modded the main character to look like Tifa from Final Fantasy VII.
Please and
Because
thank
I
you.
Yeah, because I thought that would be fun. That will be starting hopefully sometime soon, this September. And I'm just gonna, need to get back to it. Even though my office isn't set up yet, I need to get back to it.
Yeah,
Um,
man. Well, that sounds like a
so
shit ton of fun.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been Murders with Mertens, a horror film podcast. Thank you for letting us tickle your ear holes. Please like, share, and subscribe if you are so inclined. I will be back soon enough with another episode, but until next time, stay spooky, everyone.